All right. So these office hours, the purpose of this session is basically to bring awareness of all the different features that Horizon Worlds have available for creation. We often feel, just settled with the tools that we know, but then we forget that Horizon has been releasing so many features that might be very useful to make your creation a reality. So a little bit of formality here. Um, According to the skills matrix, we're going to be covering things about design as well as scripting. Under design, we're going to be uh, showing some techniques that are applicable for different mechanics, core loop and progression, and scripting, of course. Uh, Things related to programming and everything related to Meta Horizon systems. A little bit of housekeeping here. This session is currently being recorded. So as I mentioned earlier, if someone joins later, they're going to be able to see what we are going to be covering next. Make sure that you're muted so that way we do not interrupt whomever is speaking at the time. Raise your hand if you have any questions. I'm going to try to do my best to keep an eye on the audience to see who's ready to ask a question. Keep your questions concise. We only have 60 minutes to cover everything. So yeah, so that way we make sure that we give the opportunity to everybody to ask their question. Uh, Share your context beforehand. Make sure that you describe the problem or the scenario and then ask the question. Be active in the chat. If you don't feel comfortable, talking to the audience, just drop the question in the chat and then I'll read it. I'll make sure to answer it as well. And don't forget that at the end you're gonna receive a survey. Make sure to complete that survey. That's gonna help the team to know if this type of sessions are important or useful for you. And yeah, it's just gonna help us continue, to continue creating content like this. All right. With that being said, I am go ahead and ask you. Do you have any specific questions? If you do, feel free to raise your hand or ask the questions in the chat. If not, I can go ahead and start, sharing content. And as I go through it, feel free to also ask any questions. So something fun to start this session is that I've been working on creating my own camera API or camera utility. It's pretty much kind of like a Dolly. I know that there has been there are some problems capturing content when you are in a published instance. You only have access to the wrist camera, or you only have access to the mirror and stuff like that. But then what if you would like to capture, let's say, kind of like a um, high, like a high overview of your world, right, from the distance, from the sky. You can do that here in the desktop editor by just moving around. But what if you had those tools also available in a public instance? So that's what I've been working on right now here. It's a prototype, so it's kind of really raw, but it kind of gives you an idea of what you can accomplish using the tools that we have available. So if I enter this trigger, for example, uh, the simulation is currently running. So if I enter this trigger, my camera immediately changes to that view. And now I'm able to navigate the world using my keyboard, my keyboard controllers, right? So I'm pressing W to move forward, S to move backwards, A to move to the left, and D to move to the right. I am also able to rotate if I want my camera, for example, uh, and I'm also able to increase the speed. Oh, the trigger is right here. So if I stop the simulation, that is the trigger right here. So what I did is that I walked into the trigger, and as soon as I entered the trigger, what is happening behind the scenes is that my camera, my player camera, is being attached to this empty object. And as I press the keys on my keyboard, this empty object now becomes kind of like my eyes, right? So basically what happens when I enter this trigger is that my camera is placed here in this location. And then as I press the buttons on my keyboard, then that takes over the navigation system, right? So if I show you the script for this, this is going to be, this is a script over here. Something important to know, and I hope that this encourages creators to learn TypeScript, is that most of the advanced techniques or the cool features that are available are only available through TypeScript. TypeScript is a powerful tool that allows you to unlock many of the current features that we have available in Horizon. And if you're currently using Codeblocks, fear not, it is possible to combine Codeblocks and TypeScript in the same world. So if, for example, if you see during this presentation a feature that you're interested on implementing in your world, and then you have everything already in the world running using Codeblocks, by all means, you can just use TypeScript for that specific feature, and then leave everything as Codeblocks. Eventually, I encourage you to convert Codeblocks into TypeScript, just because it's going to be easier later down the road to handle and to update, but you don't have to do that everything at once. Just take advantage of the current features or of the advanced features that we have using TypeScript, and then the conversion from Codeblocks to TypeScript, take your time to do that later. But for this particular feature for the camera, what is happening behind the scenes is that I'm using an API called Horizon Camera, right? And from there, this script runs locally. And then from there, I am subscribing to different inputs. So if I zoom in, so you can see what's happening here. So I am initiating different subscriptions. In here, for example, I am subscribing to say, hey, I want to, for the back and forth, this is how I initiate the subscription. I use the player controls API. I connect to that input, and I'm saying, hey, I want to listen every time that the player tries to move forward or tries to move backwards, right? And this translates to the thumbstick, the left thumbstick on the VR player, or the W and S on PC. Then I'm saying, hey, I don't want to show any buttons on the screen. Uh, there are many options here for buttons that you can use. So for example, if I press dot, uh, all of these are different icons that can show on the screen whenever you connect to an input or subscribe to an input. And this is basically the script that is calling or subscribing to that input. So I'm doing that for every one of these keys. For example, to go up and down also by pressing Q and E, I can go up and down. The trigger basically allows me to change between movement and rotation. And then basically after I initiate each one of these subscription, then I have listeners here. So basically I say, hey, when it's pressed, that means that the player wants to move forward. When it's not pressed, that means that the player doesn't want to go anywhere. So I do that, and then I have an on-update loop here that is constantly checking for those changes. And when that happens, that's how the camera moves. So for example, like I say here, if the player wants to go up, I'm changing the Y position of the camera to go up. If the player presses down here, that's what I'm saying here. I'm saying, hey, the Y position of the camera now needs to go down. So that's just an example, and that's how that Dolly can actually work. So I'm hoping to finish that mechanic here and hopefully share it with the community, because I think that that's going to help a lot with the content creation process, especially in published instance, right? When you don't have access to what I'm doing right now. This is desktop editor, so I'm able to do what I'm planning to do also in publish mode. So yeah, that's one example. Any questions? Does that spark any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to continue working, hopefully talking. So hopefully this is going to be a conversation. I want this to be like a conversation session. So if you have any questions about, what I'm showing, feel free to drop the question in the chat or raise your hand. And can I give a moment there? Oh, thank you, thank you. Oh yeah, Mike, if you, Mike the Guru, if you know, either you can ping me later after the session if you want to show me what you have going on. If not, as I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing this script so that way people can learn from it and hopefully implement it in the world. Sandra Hartz, what does the player do? Stay in the trigger and eyes explore the world? Yeah, good question. So what happens often is that, especially with mobile players and PC players, is that when you detach the camera from the player is kind of like idle, right? It becomes kind of like a zombie in the world, right? You can freeze it, but then the player is just going to stay there wherever it was when the focus interaction changed from the player to the object. So normally the best practice there is to move a player to an area where they cannot be seen. So that way it doesn't create that friction between players that are actively using their avatars versus the player that is, uh, impersonating an object or something else. Um, so right now, my plan, again, this is kind of like still in the works. I'm not freezing the player, but what I'm planning to do is that the script is going to include an input where you can, say where you want to move the avatar after the camera takes over. So yeah, so there are different things that can be done. By the way, on that note, this technique is very useful as well. If you want to create your own, let's say, NPC with meshes, let's say that you create like a chicken or a pigeon, right? Let's talk about pigeons because it's better. If you create like an NPC that looks like a pigeon, right? You can then attach the camera to that character, and then you can use the controllers on your keyboard to move that character around. So for the player that is maneuvering or controlling that character, they're gonna look like, for everyone else, they're gonna look like that NPC. So I think that's gonna unlock many cool mechanics. Um, Matt, Matt, does the camera works in VR? No, it does not. It only works for mobile players. Yeah. Um, okay, cool. All right. If no one has any questions, I'm just gonna continue sharing things. I did prepare a few things here ahead of time, just to make sure that we don't lose any time. So the other thing that I want to show you is, let's talk about NPCs, I think. NPCs. So NPCs, um, and I'm talking about avatar NPCs, not UAVs NPCs. By the way, um, I have noticed that in the forums and in Discord that many people or many creators use the word NPC to refer to two different things, right? Um, NPC avatars are the ones that you can spawn into the world using this gizmo, but there are also the NPCs that you can get from the asset library on their, I think it's interactive. And then you have these interesting characters, right? So these are the technical name for these are Unity asset bundles. And these are created with tools that we don't have access to, and only Meta can create these, right? So what they've been doing is that they have been creating assets and then sharing those with us in a way that we can interact with them, right? But technically, these are Unity asset bundles, and then you can make them behave as NPCs, with the scripting. But what I'm referring to NPCs in this case is the one that looks like a real player, like this one, and you can spawn into the world using this gizmo. This gizmo, remember, is under the build menu gizmos, and there is one here for NPC right there. Okay, so why this is useful? So one of the big challenges that we have as world creators is that it's hard to bring real players into the world when we first launched it, right? And then when we try to convince player to come and play the game, they find that the world is empty. So a workaround of that is to actually use the NPC gizmo like this one. So that way you can mimic the behavior of real players. That way, when the first player joins the session, um, they find that there's someone else in the world or something else moving in the world, and that is going to bring life to it. So what I have here is kind of like a already set up are the different things that you can do with an NPC and to demonstrate that the NPC behaves exactly like a real player. So these are a set of viewpoints that I have here. The player, when I play the world, the player first is going to run here, then it's going to rotate, and then it's going to go to this another trigger here, and then it's going to grab this sphere. Then it's going to run to this next trigger, and then when it reaches this point, it's going to drop that ball, and then this cube is going to be attached to the player. Then it's going to continue running. Okay, this is the ugliest weapon that you probably have seen in your life, but this was a quick setup. So, but as soon as it reaches this trigger here, the NPC is gonna grab the weapon and then it's gonna start shooting. And then when it reaches this trigger here, the NPC is gonna be normal again. So let me play the world and hopefully it works. Oh, I don't need to go small. But yeah, it's running there. Then it's gonna run to the next, this one. Now it's grabbing it. It's running to the next point. That cube is attached to the head. It's gonna grab the weapon. It's shooting and then normal again. It's just gonna continue doing that over and over. So run here, then it's gonna go to the next trigger again, grab something, then something is attached to the player, grab the weapon again, shoot, shoot around again. I didn't have time to add a grab anchor there, but you can see that even when it grabs the weapon, even though it's grabbing it in the wrong way, um, the player does have the pose, right? Like saying, hey, he's shooting at something, right? So yeah, that's something that you can configure further. And yeah, basically you can create a whole game with this. At one point, I prototyped a, what was it? A snowball game, right? Where the NPCs were like actually, grabbing snowballs from the environment and throwing them to the player. So yeah, that's another cool mechanic that, again, this is also possible only with TypeScript at the moment. So I'm gonna check the chat, see. Um, oh yeah, Meta did nothing to reduce that NPC naming confusion. That's true. Uh, I should say, but okay, that's true. Yeah, well, thank you for the encouragement there, Space Glitter. Yeah, I hope that I feel bad. I'm gonna probably connect with you next time that I need to create any assets. I'm a scripter. I'm not a builder, so we need to join forces there. Uh, that's true, Barry. Will we get copies of these NPC scripts? Yeah, by all means. I mean, these were like the question for Lyrica is that she's asking if we're gonna get copies of these scripts. By all means, I'm gonna clean them a little bit. I created this probably like in 15 minutes just for this session, so they're a little bit, all over the place. But I'm gonna clean them up a little bit. I'm gonna add some comments so that way you can hopefully uh, copy some of the mechanics that are available there. Um, thank you, Sandra. Can you make it do other poses? Um, the avatar player, the NPC player here, can adopt any pose that a real player can adopt as well. So we have um, limited poses at the moment. Let's see, if I go open the script right now. So the poses that I'm using here, should this, so I am using the pistol pose. So for example, this is how you can specify what pose you want to use. So we have carry lights, fishing, RPG, rifle, shield, shotgun, sword, and torch. Those are the ones that we have available at the moment. So the API that I'm using is the set avatar grip pose overrides. Um, and yeah, those are the ones that we have available. There is an API out there that is kind of like halfway there released, where hopefully in the future we're going to be able to create our own animations. And yeah, waiting for that moment until Meta releases that API, and then we should be able to also implement those with the avatar players, with the NPC players. Do the avatar NPC have access to the same animations we can play on? Yeah, yeah, they do. As I mentioned before. Um, what stuff? I like that they have. Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, that was really nice. It took me, like probably 30 minutes to create this hat. So they have they don't have emotes. No, Russell, they don't have emotes. They have poses. We cannot like trigger emotes on the uh, avatars yet. Can we make them walk, then set down or click triggers? Uh, Sit down. I'm guessing that you're asking sitting down, Lyrical. No, we cannot sit them down at the moment. The sitting pose is really limited. I wish we had more access, to like an API to force a player to sit on the pose gizmo, but at the moment we don't. So we cannot force any player, either real or an NPC avatar, to sit on that pose gizmo, right? So we cannot force them. And yeah, they can click triggers. For example, in this case, that's precisely what's happening, right? The player is entering the trigger, and that's activating the next script. So for example, if you have, for example, let's say like a button that is kind of like a trigger, what you can do there is either force the player to enter that trigger, with their body, or just script it like, hey, like if you are close enough, just trigger that mechanic that will trigger, if the player is actually uh, grabbing the button with their hand. No, Sandria, not dancing, unfortunately. Uh, yeah, exactly. As Richard is mentioning there are pose animations for like to die or respawn as well. Uh, can the NPC mimic player movement? Yep, as I mentioned, as you can see here, that's what's happening here. Unless you have any specific scenario, Christopher, that you want to ask. VR Plug is asking, is there currently a known bug with NPCs? I'm having an issue with them just spawning in the original position I place them at. They also sometimes spawn not facing the right direction. Yeah, there are a few weird behavior with this gizmo. If I were to stop and play the world several times, we'll notice that the avatar is gonna stop spawning in the world. So something to be aware of is that the NPC player takes this requires the same capacity, or the same, uses the same capacity as a real player. So for example, if your world only allows 8 players, you can only have 8 NPCs well, actually 7, because a real player and then 7 NPCs, right? You cannot start a session without a real player. So if a real player enters the world, you can only spawn now 7 NPCs. So eventually, depending of the duration of the session, I imagine that then spawning these NPCs are going to be degraded over time. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind there. Uh, any way to rotate while moving? No, no value point, no way to rotating the player while moving yet. Um, the player literally has to stop, rotate, and then move. There is a little bit of rotation when the player tries to go to a location, but it's not as effective as actually calling the rotation API. Uh, Cover chosen. When I edit my MPC, it doesn't show changes. Yeah, I have seen that feedback. Sometimes that happened to me as well. If you're still experiencing that problem, make sure to file a Zendesk ticket. Also make sure that whenever after you make the changes on the website, you click on this refresh button to make sure that the avatar actually, changes on your desktop editor. If it doesn't change, even after pressing that button, then by all means file that bug because that's not the expected behavior. Um, Mimic player movement as I move my left hand and they move theirs. Um, Christopher, no, we cannot mirror the movement of a real player with a NPC player. Um, you can get an approximation of that if you use one of the default animations that we have available. Like for example, in this case, this is the pistol pose. So for example, like you can make it like if you raise your right hand, then the NPC player also, uh, does the same using one of those default animations, but we don't have free control to the, let's say, like an IK system. It's kind of like very restricted at the moment. What about playing dead? Yeah, yeah, you can definitely kill NPC avatars playing the die animation for sure. Uh, yeah, uh, Tuna. Hopefully, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name. Yeah, you can also stop and play the world to make sure that the NPC also refreshes. Uh, was there a rotation API released last update? Yeah, that rotation API is for real players, right? Uh, and is actually probably we can do it here real quickly. But yeah, that rotation API is for real players that allows you now to rotate the player on the y-axis. The NPCs have their own API. So it's under locomotion. So the NPC gizmo has a locomotion method with a rotate, method that then you can specify in what direction that NPC should be looking towards, and then it just follows that direction. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, something that I've seen a lot happening on the Discord, asking about this feature, is that often when using this API, I see creators using the destination of where the NPC should go to kind of like to tell the NPC where it should be like rotating towards, but instead of a location, you have to specify the direction. So for example, in this case, what I'm doing is that for the look direction, what I'm doing is that I'm taking the position of the next trigger, I'm subtracting the location of the current trigger. So by subtracting two positions, that is going to give you the direction, right? So it should be the location where you want to go minus the location where you are. That is going to give you a direction, and that's what we use for the rotation part here. Okay, good question so far. Uh, Let me now move on to the next one. I see many people asking questions about world streaming and asset spawning. So in this setup, again, what you're about to see, please, I hope that you forget what you're gonna about to see. It was a quick setup. Uh, it took me like 2 minutes to configure the asset that are gonna be spawning here, but hopefully they help to illustrate how asset spawning works and world streaming works, right? Uh, so asset spawning. So you probably familiarized with asset spawning. So asset spawning is basically having an asset, somewhere in your files, and then basically use the API either with Codeblocks or TypeScript, and then wiggle it a little bit to kind of like to know exactly where that asset should appear. So for example, if I wanted to spawn something in the world, I would have to, let's say, maybe position it, like I'm gonna bring this one for now. And then I'm gonna have to like move it around like this a little bit. And then maybe like, maybe like position a cube there. And then we didn't have a pigeon, so I had to do it to use a duck. It's the closest thing to a pigeon that we have in the asset, I think. So yeah, so that's as spawning, right? And then after you kind of like get a good idea of where you want to get it, where you want to place it, then you copy that location, then you delete the asset, and then you have to go to the script and then basically hard code the location of where you want to place it, right? Like for example, in this test world that I have here, I basically have a list of assets that I'm gonna be spawning in. Um, and basically, I have to specify the location where I want that asset to be. You can, of course, be more optimized, optimize this script by having a reference object in the world and basically say, hey, I want to spawn this asset in the location of this object. Something like, like a reference object here, ref location, and then this could be a type, prop type, define, prop types, and then an entity. And then you could do something like these props, ref location, position, get, something like that. Forgive me that I'm bypassing some best practices here. There is a whole reason why you shouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, like using the exclamation point here. I'm just for time's sake, but don't do that. Uh, but basically, if you do that, for example, you can definitely just have like a reference object positioned where you want to bring that asset, and that's perfectly fine, right? Uh, However, with world streaming, you don't have to do that. With world streaming, for example, what happens is that you now have a gizmo that you can now move around and then freely position the asset that you're going to be spawning in. So for example, if I click on any of these gizmos, these are already pre-configured, and I'm going to show you how that works. But basically, these are already pre-configured with the asset that I want to bring into the world. And then if I change it from being unloaded to active, I can now just move this around and then maybe like, position where I want it to be, boom, I'm done. All I have to do now is just basically make it unloaded. So that way it's unloaded by default. And now whenever I activate the script, then the asset is going to appear right there. So this is really convenient when you are, trying to switch the environment dynamically. Let's say, for example, like you have, I don't know, like a stage world where you have like different presentation with different artists, right? Let's say that you want to show, I don't know, kind of like a club environment whenever you have like a hip hop presentation or whatever. Or if you want to show, I don't know, like a stadium, if you have like a more like a sport or related theme, right? So you can definitely use something like world streaming like this to dynamically change the environments. So let me show you how that works. So if I play the world, what I have here is that the assets that appear on the left are going to be appearing in the world using as a spawning, and this one is going to be using world streaming. So if I enter the asset spawning stage here, again, forgive me for, again, this is just the only thing that I can come up with in a few minutes. But yeah, we have that dolphin there that, is moving around with this little, again, Yalitza, I'm going to be reaching out to you uh, to join forces here. But as you can see here, of course, with asset spawning, you can have scripted objects. Um, and, after it's in the world, you can interact with it. I have a dynamic light here that it shows that the dynamic light does affect the asset that you're spawning in. If I go into the same stage, I have it scripted. So if I join the same stage again, then it should spawn the assets. and hopefully eventually show a new one. Uh, I've been having this problem here. What's happening is that most likely I'm gonna have to leave and come back into a world at the moment. 1 second. I think that the asset that I'm trying to spawn is kind of like too big. Let me do the changes here. I will not save that. Okay, so let's do that again. All right, so this was the first one. Boom. And then if I go there again, that one is the spawn, and then we have the new one. That one's kind of decent, right? You should be proud of me. I mean, I put some effort in this one. I forgot, I left that rock there flying in the sky, but don't look at that. Let's actually change the camera so it doesn't appear on the frame right there. So it's perfect now. And the same thing happened with world streaming here. If I go to world streaming, let me actually despawn this one. So go on. So the same assets, but here I'm gonna bring them over. So this is the first one, similar as spawning here. You can use lights and everything to affect the rendering. And if I go again, the new asset as well. So imagine again if you have like different environments, like if you're trying to, depending of the event that you're running, uh, you can switch this environment, dynamically. So yeah, it has multiple applications. And how it works, very quickly, we can have like an entire hour just talking about how to implement this, but very quickly, this requires to have worlds already published. For example, in this case, I have two of them. So it's going to be world. So for example, one of them is world one. If I go there, see, I've noticed that it's taking longer to travel to worlds now for some reason. But if I go there, as you can see, it's just the asset here in the world. Um, and basically, the world has to be published. It is currently published, and it has to be undiscoverable. Then I publish that one. And after publishing this one, then in the other world, in the main world, by using the gizmo, I'm now able to select this world as the asset that is going to be spawning in when I use the world streaming feature. So as I mentioned, for example, this is entire world, and this only has these assets here. Um, there are ways where you can, for example, let's say you can exclude things that you don't want to bring with world streaming. And for that, um, that's this little cube here that I have here. This is the same gizmo, but instead of selecting the deep link here configuration, I'm actually using the exclude configuration. And basically everything that I dropped inside of this gizmo will not be a stream into the main world. So that's how it works, the basic functionality of it. Okay, I'm gonna look at the chat now for questions. Remember that you can raise your hand if you want to also, say something. Uh, Let me go back a little bit. Okay, Cray saying, I think this setup is so fun though. It is random dance party. Yeah, I was literally just like creating something quickly here. I was running out of ideas, so I just like tried to create something fun. Thank you, Craig. Uh, yeah, probably they were to like, I mean, I was playing around with it earlier. I think when I dragged and dropped the asset into the world, I think that was part of the problem. Maybe some of those entities were still in the world, or maybe the world run out of capacity or something. So that's why I had to leave and come back. Um, so that was asset spawning. Yeah, that was asset spawning on the left and world streaming on the right. Ducking in the desert. Love it. Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Flying rocks, an artistic choice. Thank you, Mike the Guru. I'm not as good, in Europe, God, creating beautiful things. So also I'm gonna reaching out to you, whenever I have to create something. more artistic than this. uh, it looks good, thank you. Sublevel streaming preserves the big static lighting better than assets. Yeah, good point, Richard. That's one of the benefits of asset streaming, the world streaming, is that it handles lighting better than asset spawning. When should we use streaming over spawning? Uh, Good question. I think it's easier to answer when to use asset spawning. Asset spawning is great when you are trying to bring into the world interactive items. Like let's say, like if you have, let's say, like a fashion show world, right? You can bring in and out outfits whenever you want, right? Because those are little, interactive items that you're gonna be bringing in and out very often, right? Um, I think that that's the best scenario of using as a spawning. But whenever you want to bring like entire environments, like big and like uh yeah, big rooms or an entire world literally, because as I show you, the the asset itself that is gonna be appearing in this world, for example, the original world has to be published, right? So let's say that you create an entire mini game in the other world. You can use world streaming for that. Um, by the way, you can include any type of assets in that world. You can include, grabbables, interactables, weapons, or whatnot, and you can, switch back and forth, very dynamically here. Also, I would say that as I mentioned, another benefit is that the placement of the asset itself is easier with world streaming, right? You can easily change the from unloaded to active, and then you can easily move it around. So you can be very precise of where that asset is gonna appear. Like for example, like if I move this one to the left, all the way to the left like that, and then maybe I rotate it a little bit like that. Now when I unload this asset, it's gonna be unloaded. And then if I play the interaction again, that's the first one. And then I was trying to create an aquarium there, but it's, I don't know why the dancing thing is there. But and then now you can see now that the environment is easily over there. Whereas with asset spawning, you have to like do a spawning in, then you didn't like the position of it, that you have to despawn it, then adjust the location, and spawn it again, and it just becomes too problematic. But yeah, I would say that those are uh, you know, the factors to take in consideration whenever you are evaluating to use one technique versus the other. Another good example is like if you have like a library like assets. Let's say like you have like different, I don't know, motorcycles. Since I ride motorcycles, let me use that example. Like if you have like different models of motorcycles, and then instead of having them all in the world, as spawning is a good solution for that, because a player can decide when to spawn, one model versus the other. Is a single item, but yeah. Okay. So Josh is asking, where do I get that world streaming gizmo? I don't see it in my, yeah, it should be there. Well, it's under the build menu. Under the build menu here, you're gonna see this sub-level. It's kind of like hidden. You're right. It should be under the gizmo. I don't know why it's separate here. But yeah, when I click on this, um, that's how that gizmo appears in the world, and then you can configure it. Just remember that deep link is the configuration that allows you to select what world you want to use, to stream, right? But if you change it to exclude, that's how you can then drag and drop things into the gizmo to say, hey, I don't want to include this whenever someone tries to spawning in. So yeah, those are the two configurations that uh, you can have with the sub-level gizmo. Metaverse, you definitely did a great job. Thank you. And this is amazing. Thank you so much for highlighting. Oh my gosh, this is the okay. Yeah, by all means, like like if you have any follow-up questions to any of these mechanics, if you cannot think about anything right now, feel free, to drop the question in the on the Discord, and yeah, uh, can you bring in scripted items with that too? Yeah, you can bring everything. Literally, I forgot to animate the dog. I ran out of time. But yeah, imagine for example, like the dog, is scripted, or if you have like, like a bunch of weapons around, all those animated objects are gonna be with the asset itself. Um, oh, thank you so much. Uh, Glad to see that is helping you. Is there a noticeable latency issue between the two? Hmm, that's a very good question. I would say yes. I haven't like measured it. I would say that I have been I have had more problems with asset spawning than with role streaming. With asset spawning, it's a it's an API that has been evolving over time. Um, but it has many issues. I would say, especially with late joiners to the session. What happens sometimes is that late joiners sometimes do not render the asset, or depending of their network, they don't render the asset either. So honestly, I don't have like an exact answer to that in terms of performance, which one is better. I guess that I'm gonna take that offline. I'm gonna try to, measure both with Perfetto or something and see which one has, decisive, difference in terms of performance. But that's a very good question. Uh, Thank you. Very nice. Yeah. Uh, by the way, let me repeat this. This session is being recorded, so even if you joined late and you missed the first part of this presentation, you're gonna be able to replay it later whenever the team decides to publish and share this video with everybody. And yeah, with the scripts, I'm gonna clean them up a little bit. Um, I guess that I can share them as is, uh, knowing that, as I mentioned, I made all these mechanics fairly quickly. So I am indeed bypassing some of the best practices. Like, for example, like you wouldn't want for example, let's see, this one. I guess that this one is fairly okay. Um, I would say, oh, okay, yeah, this one, for example, is not a good thing to do. Like, whenever you see these, like this exclamation mark, this is not a good practice. Again, I just did this just because I was prototyping, but yeah, I guess I can share this script and then add some notes here saying, hey, you don't do this. This is basically uh, telling TypeScript, hey, I know better than you, TypeScript. Don't tell me that this doesn't exist. But yeah, best practices. Yeah, yeah. If we only knew someone that an expert of best practices, right? Uh, that reminds me. Make sure that you go to the documentation portal. Right there, you're gonna find a document, a really lengthy, long document with a bunch of best practices that Charts created. Um, that is gonna help you, speed up in the process of creating awesome things with TypeScript. All right, let's see what else I have here. Remember, if you have specific questions, I don't want this to be only me, like, proposing topics. Uh, we do have 10 minutes, so if anyone has any specific questions, feel free to ask in the chat or raise your hands, and we can improvise a little bit. Oh, this is a great one. This one that I don't see people using too often. I think that will the video and code examples be able? Yeah, they will. They will be available later. I'm gonna clean them up a little bit, and then maybe I'm gonna share them, maybe in the Discord or maybe on the forum. I have to check with the team what would be the best place to do that. So a nice hidden feature that I don't see too many people using is instance replay. And that's basically something that allows only VR players to capture epic moments in your world. Imagine, for example, that you have, let's say, like an impossible jump, right, on a parkour game, or you have, let's say, um, like a racing game, right? And then uh, you want to capture that moment when the player's about to reach the end of the competition or the end of the race, and then you want to be able to capture that in a video so that way the player takes that home and then brag about that on social media. That is actually very good to implement in your world, especially if you want to start marketing your world and the fun of what happens in your experience. Because again, as I mentioned, people can take that video and then post it in social media, and then others are going to start seeing, hey, this person was here, and then they accomplished this, and then that's going to bring more visitors to your world. The only caveat with this, though, is that this is only available for VR players. It doesn't work with mobile and PC, unfortunately. But it's still, the majority of the visitors that we have in the world right now are VR. So let me see if I can demo it real quick. Let me switch to my headset. 1 second. Okay, and then I have to. Oh, by the way, this is a nice trick that not too many people know. If you prefer to use VR creation, um, but there are certain things that you can do, with the desktop editor. You can switch to VR by pressing this button, but it does require the headset to be connected to the PC, either with a cable or Airlink. But if I press this button now, I should be able to switch to VR, and there you go. That's me in VR right now. So I'm gonna play the world and enter. So what's going to happen here is that when I enter that platform over there, the recording is going to start, capturing my movement. And then after 5 seconds, I think I have it configured. Then the recording is going to stop. And then I'm going to get a notification say, hey, this is awesome. Do you want to share it? So let's see what happens. So I'm going to go here. Yay, having a good time in the grid. And there you go. Let's run it back. Your replay is ready. So if I click wash, there you go. So now it's replaying my experience there. So if I press play again, um, so the user is going to have 7 days left, to save this recording. They can save it, and then after they save it, they can share it, in social media or any other place. Um, there are different configuration of how you can place the camera. There also you can place the camera, in third person, and yeah. Let me stop this one. Go back to desktop editor. 1 second. Take my headset off. All right. So let's see. Let's see the comments. Show trail gizmo if you run out of things to show. Okay. Okay, I'll go back to that, Natasha. I think we won't be able, we only have 4 minutes left, but I promise that, if there are any pending questions, after we reach the end of this session, I'm going to take those questions offline, and then I'm going to reply to those later. Um, Not all of us can join Discord. Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to be sharing the same information on the forum. So everybody has access to those. No worries. I think they mean the basic meta Discord, no way point. Yeah, that's true. No value point. Either no, it's gonna be. I don't think that we post anything on the open Discord at the moment. We either post information, MHCP related information, only on the forums, or or yeah, on meta MHCP related only. You know, yeah, places. So not in the open Discord, because in the open Discord, basically those are, available for everybody, even for people that are not in the MHCP. Uh, so I want to do so many things, all the things now. Yeah, and there are so many things now that, there are so many things. I'm going to have, by the way, uh, a workshop next week, a couple of them this week, that is going to be covering some of the same mechanics that we covered today, but also many other additional, functionalities that are available currently in Horizon Worlds. So make sure to join those, because again, I'm going to continue sharing more demos during those sessions. Ebony, uh, yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Ebony. Definitely, it would be amazing if more creators start using the desktop editor, I know that there is a big shift, between VR creation and desktop editor. But as I mentioned, you don't have to do everything at once. You, by all means, can start using the desktop editor and just switch to VR using this button whenever you feel, this is very complicated to do with the desktop editor alone. So let me switch to VR, place things in the world, and then switch back to the desktop editor whenever you want. Wanted to try camera replay for a wheelie. Need this for my steampunk. Yep, I'm gonna be sharing that. But can it be third person? I think that would be cooler. Yeah, you can definitely change the camera to be third person view. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be sharing the scripts, Ebony. Using PC Link has been a game changer. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that experience. As I get used to using the desktop editor, I have been spreading the world. Yeah, the word. I did not know. Wait, I'm missing that part. I could do that for a while, and I was struggling. Yeah. Is this MHCP only stuff? We don't have a list yet. Yeah, everything that I have shared today is available for everybody, either for MHCP creators and for the general public as well. So nothing in here is restricted for Actually, you know what? I take that back because I think that the instance replay is only available for MHCP creators. It's not available for the general public. And the reason how I know that is because I tried to use my bot account to run this presentation and I couldn't. And the reason is because there is a setting here in order to use this feature that has to be enabled on the player settings, and is this one here, generate instance replays. That's what allows you to actually, be able to generate those videos automatically. And I couldn't find that one in my bot account. So yeah, only MHCP at the moment. This one, everything else that I shared today is available for everybody. Show the camera for the camera replay. Sorry, show the code for the camera replay. Yeah, so it's very straightforward. It's very simple. It doesn't require local scripting. It's just a server script. So if I open it, it's just this. You can see it's really short. Literally, all it does is basically when I enter the trigger, I call this function saying, hey, I started recording. And then I start capturing with this, capturing the video. And then after 5 seconds, I stop the recording. As easy as that. It kind of gets simpler than this. This is a server-side script, doesn't require local scripts. And yeah, literally there's nothing that stops you from using this functionality. Thank you, Tawalu, for sharing the upcoming workshops. So I think that we have reached the end of this presentation. I hope that everything that I shared today inspires you to use some of these tools. If you don't know exactly how to implement them, make sure to ask either on the forum or through any platform. And then the team and myself are going to be, looking to those questions and hopefully, develop more in detail, more in depth information and tutorials around how to configure those. But yeah, thank you for attending today. And as I mentioned, this is going to be shared so that way you can replay it and hopefully implement it as well. So thank you and have a great night. Thank you so much.